All right, everyone, welcome to another cool special episode of Stu and the Nun. You see here, you got both namesakes. You got Stu, you got Nunn, who is now titled himself as the low key management material. And it's what all the cool kids call him. So I don't know how that translates from Spanish, but
No, so we're trying a new platform, compliments old taco, and the when it invited me into the thing, it asked me how I'd like to be announced to the meeting, and so I just typed something like I would type going into a Zoom meeting or something, because like I I typically don't take them as seriously as I should.
well, I'm glad you don't have it doesn't have your pronouns below your name. I probably would
I
have
don't
not
know.
allowed you in.
Yeah, I don't know what those are. The
Well, I
I
think you
mean,
have
like,
two. I think the first one could start with the letter F, and the second one could start with the letter Y. But I don't know. That's
yeah,
that's
I'm not.
you know.
Yeah, I
I think I know who you. I think I know
like
what your pronouns are. I'm gonna assume. I'm gonna guess I know what your pronouns are. And
my dog's out there
El
trying to correct
Perro,
somebody on. He's trying to correct somebody on their speech right now.
yeah, El
Like, don't you
Perro is
talk to
like
me like that?
that's right.
Yeah, he's something special. But
You
anyway,
got
hey,
you got your
it's
own
great to be
enforcer
on.
right there. Yeah, yeah. Good to
Yeah,
have you,
it's
buddy.
great to be on. It's been a minute, and hopefully Santiago, the Count de Marino Cabo, is not too loud out there, but he uh, he apparently has reason to take offense to somebody nearby.
Well,
He really dislikes mariachi, so maybe someone was strumming something.
oh, that's not a good place to not like mariachis.
Oh, he has an affinity, uh, as they would say back in the day. He acquired a taste. So, like, you know, in the U.S. there was the mailman. Here it's the mariachi.
Mariachis,
But
some of the
but
guitar chords or the sound or something. He
someone,
just
I like, all seriousness, like, he really dislikes them, and so
oh,
I'm assuming, some violence was, put to him, either with that playing in the background or by an instrument or something. But
hmm.
he is
Well,
a definite, like, dislike for him. But anyway, we're not here to talk about
yeah,
dogs,
we got a little
even
bit.
though
We're
they're
doing a
like they
They
are
are
cool as
awesome.
shit.
We could talk about it.
Yeah,
I just on that to follow that up. Brutus does not like harmonicas or bagpipes. Freaking just howl, just not like it.
doesn't
But
like bagpipes.
I think it's the sound. I think it how it hits his ears and that kind of stuff. Yeah, just
Mm.
or he does like him. He just howls like a banshee. I don't know.
Well, he's
But
British, right?
he's an old English bulldoggy. Yeah, I mean he was
Yeah, so
born in the U.S. But
maybe he's so old that he remembers the War of the Roses, and he's like, "Wrong side, wrong team, Dad."
and there's your history lesson. Wikipedia. You can Google War of the Roses, and you'll see why the
That's
English
right.
bulldog he doesn't like it. Anyways, yeah, we're here to talk about. There's so much going on. I mean, every day I've been trying to get episodes out, and like during the day, I'll be sitting there thinking about, oh, this is going on. I need to jump on real quick and do an episode, but just life takes over, right, and goes by. But
Yeah,
there's this one thing that's just stood out, and you and I were chatting about it earlier today. I mean, you and I have both done tours of combat, and we have, went over to third world shithole countries and tried to help establish, democratic process and governance and equality, equity, not I don't say equality or equity, but fairness. Yeah, must messed up there. Nowadays they probably establish equity or equality, but fair,
immediately.
yeah, fairness and just countries to rule themselves and have a democratic way to vote for the leaders, not be ruled by dictators and that kind of stuff. And we have from people sticking their fingers in ink to
Yep.
opening of allowing girls to go to school or whatever it may
Yeah.
be. And we've seen corruption at all levels. I know you saw it in Iraq. I saw it in Afghanistan, where people would, our example was the pay officer, the S1, if you would, of an army, Afghan army battalion, would come down and pay the soldiers every month in cash, and he would take 10% off the top for having to come down there to pay him to do his job. And once we were made aware of that, we stopped that. But he was here's a soldier that makes $55 a month as a private, and he essentially took $5 back in American and said, "This is my fee for coming to having to come down range and pay you." So we've seen corruption at all levels, and we've also seen it. Honestly, we see it in all points of our life, including in the U.S. Right? Hey,
Mhm.
rub my back, right? Scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Hey, throw me this, and I'll take care of you. I mean, it's really his part of a common way of life. Would you agree? I mean,
Well, yeah. So I'm currently spending a certain amount of time in a country that also enjoys corruption. But I would say, like in the United States, we don't like to call it corruption, because that would
has a negative
present
connotation.
yeah
Yeah, that's
presents like an air of guilt.
right.
So we just it's really good networking, right? I scratch your
Yes.
back, you scratch mine. It's like
It's all in
it's
who
ex-
you know, right?
it's
Yeah.
it's called exceptional networking, and like or friends with benefits. The That's right.
I didn't expect that to be the term you used, but okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Uh, and
So we
it's
we do
really
see it. We do see it in this level, but it's just
absolutely, like in the United States, uh, we used to think of it. You'd see it on low levels, right? And then at a higher level, it was called the lowest bidder, and at the lower levels, it's just friendship.
right. And there's
And
some places
so,
there's companies and government agencies and stuff that have limits on like what vendors or people trying to get business, can give them in the value of gifts or take them
yeah,
out. I mean, it's to kind of prevent that, right? So to see, you and I both know, right? In the military, for example, or any government agency, if you have a government employee as your customer, I mean, this is I've been working on for years. I think it's a $20 limit that you can give a government employee from like to eat at the $20 limits, whether it's a $20 cup of coffee, dinner, a gift, it's $20, right? That's the max they can take from you, so they're not undue influenced. So
yeah. So let's dive into this, because like I'm going to bring the military into it real fast.
yeah,
Um, and I'm using that as a baseline, as an example. Uh, to become a recruiter in the United States Army, uh, not only do you have to, you get selected or you apply. It's usually selection at a decentralized level, or I
right,
mean, correction, at a centralized level. DA select, Department of the Army selected, and then one of the very first criterias, one of the very first criterias, is you have to pass a credit check, right? So you have to pass a credit check, and the reason you have to pass a credit check to bring people into the military is so that you can't be compromised,
right,
right? There's another thing, where it used to be commonly known as the lottery clause, right? So if like a service member uh, won the lottery and they had more money than their commander, they could be released from their obligation because they were compromised, and like the power, the general military authority that their commander had over them was diminished because, well, like, what are you going to do? Like, you got to take, a month's pay away from me? Whatever, dude. I make more than you. I have more than you. Like, and so there's these things that are at just the lowest levels. At the
right.
lowest levels, you have to be able to pass a credit check so you are not compromised, or you can't be compromised. Does that happen at a higher level?
You
I
would
mean, like,
well,
because I'm
honestly,
like,
well,
I'm
but
like,
that right to get a clearance, right? To get a security clearance, they do a full deep credit check, right? And in fact, if you're holding a clearance in the DoD side, I won't talk about some of the other agencies, but in DoD, which people are commonly refer to as secret, top secret, and
yeah,
things like that. And there's levels higher,
on that
top
SF
secret,
86, man, they know
right?
everything.
They know everything, and you got to put like all
Yeah.
your bills and stuff like that. In some agencies, there's a continual check of your credit because you hold such sensitive access to so much sensitive data that you are continually checked and even asked about when you start to acquire larger debts and things like that. So you can't be desperate to be bought off, right? That's really
Yeah.
is that someone says,
And someone can't gift you a house.
right,
Someone
and
can't
be
gift you a car.
right.
Like, yeah, everything's right there.
So that's
You're monitored.
SESs and GSs and
Yeah.
GS15s and all that level and stuff like that. But at the highest levels, right?
So
So-
so here we have, and I'm gonna use my country. I'm gonna use your country, and then I'll
which
use
is
our
also
countries.
yes, it's our country. Yes.
Then I'll use our countries. So like the leadership in each one of these countries right now, and you can pick which one you want, are both facing like the fact that they've been financially compromised by agents of other countries. And
So
I'm not just saying like
so
some dude from
educate me
another
on
country.
Trudeau. Educate me
All
on
right,
Trudeau. What's happening with Canada? I honestly I don't know. So
so the Trudeau Foundation, right, which is a government-backed nonprofit foundation, has taken money and distributed money from communist China,
oh
uh, the party,
oh
as and to the thing, campaigns have taken money from foreign agents. Uh, there have been what looks like quid pro quo,
right
uh, and so like in an effort to kind of hide it, uh, the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, uh, got his one of his dad's best friends, his neighbor, and the girl next door's dad and ski buddy uh, to investigate him. Like, hey, I know my dad gave you like this really important job. You were like the attorney general of the country, and your daughters and I, like, we're like BFFs. It's so cool. Hey, so I'm like under investigation. Would you mind just poking around? You're a reputable guy. Maybe you find something, maybe you don't, and just tell the people. Just tell the people. Just tell the people. It's all good. And then like I appreciate the favor. And so like
that's what's
old
happening,
dude,
huh? I gotta pay
old
attention.
so old dude does exactly that. He's like, you know what, kid? I really liked your dad. Kind of wish he ended up with one of my girls, but we'll always have the ski hill together. Our chalets are next to each other. And so of course I'll look into it for you. And I'll immediately release a statement that says, there's no smoke, there's no fire, nothing to see here. Thanks, people. Canada, rest easy. You're in great hands. And for some unknown reason, people put up the bullshit flag.
What?
And now I know it's crazy. And like called that dude out and said, "Hey, how is it that you were able to come to like this determination that everything was good, free and clear, no compromise, no conflicts of interest? Yet you being the guy is a conflict of interest, and there's all this evidence."
Right.
And so he was like, awkward, my bad. I resign." Like, and so that's like one thing. The other thing, and so like we'll just go ahead and we'll jump right to the United States then. You know, the Hunter
So
Biden,
hold on, I want to
Joe
pause real quick
Biden.
just so I know. Are they continue? Is someone else doing an investigation? Is there
Oh
like
yeah,
an
yeah. No, like
IG or an
they've been
independent auditor or something?
they're arguing daily
Oh,
on
okay.
national TV, arguing daily on national TV to have an independent counsel.
Investigator counsel. Okay.
Like have like a public. It's called a public inquiry,
Mm.
and like you can you can have witnesses testify. You can cross-examine them by way of asking questions to the chair. And in Canada, they just are kind of going through one right now, dealing with the truckers. That
Oh yeah.
revolted. Their January 6th, if you will,
Right.
and so they had this revolt, which was called the Freedom Express or the Freedom Rally or whatever, Freedom Convoy, and it was just truckers from across the country that drove to the capital of Canada, Ottawa, and
Right.
parked their trucks in the streets and said, hey, like the country's going to stand still until you guys get this COVID bullshit under control.
Right.
And so the people push back. Let's jump to the United States. United States, we have this ongoing thing, and now we're seeing like, oh, like the levels and layers of corruption. It's like,
It's sickening. It's also
yeah,
mind
and
blowing.
and and then like you and I both grew up during a time where even me in Canada, I knew about Watergate,
Right.
like the this huge scandalous thing
From
that
the early
caused,
70s, right? That caused the
like
president to resign.
I'm not a thief,
Right.
and like Nixon, gets outed for spying on his political opponents, and like it forces a resignation. We have years
We're also old
of,
enough to remember Lewinsky Gate, but that's a whole other one.
yeah, right. I did not have sexual relations with that girl. My cigar did. The
That's a good impression.
it wasn't, but thanks. I tried. It was short notice. I had
Yeah, no,
no rehearsal
it's
time.
on the fly.
But we have years of evidence of collusion between a certain political party and government agencies.
Yep.
All right, so we can go back where the IRS were weaponized against conservative political action committees, churches,
Journalist.
nonprofit organizations, journalists.
Yeah.
Like so, like, and I'm not talking this administration. I'm talking
Couple
like you can
back.
go back. You can go back a couple,
Yep.
and you're going to find it. And then in the previous administration, you see like the perpetual like we're going after you. We have this, and as time has passed, and we have normalized certain behavior. Uh, and I say we've normalized certain behavior because how does a guy like Adam Schiff go on every news program on the weekend and say we have substantial evidence? I've
Yeah.
seen
That I've seen
substantial,
it.
like
And they're not
I've
holding
seen it.
him.
It
Right.
exists, and no one gets held accountable, right?
Right. Right.
So did the IRS agents, that acted on the behest of the like couple of administrations ago get held to account? No, they got promoted. If you're an army general and you're a miserable failure, and you botch the withdrawal from, say, I don't know, Iraq. We'll randomly pick a country because we were just happened to be in that one at the time, and it's one of the greatest military failures of all time. It creates, a void and vacuum that allows a caliphate of, radical Islamists take over a huge portion of real estate, enslave tens of thousands of people, murder tens of thousands of people, promote some pretty hateful shit. Like just
Right.
like, oh, you're gay. I'm gonna throw you from this roof. I'm not
Right.
gonna waste a bullet on you. I'm just gonna tie you to another body. Like just really, hateful stuff. And that was all facilitated by poor leadership and an absolute failure.
What happened to
What
that
happened?
leadership?
Well, he got promoted.
Mm,
Um, Obviously not by performance,
no.
and like, and now he's the head of the Department of Defense
Yeah.
that's
Now he's
missing
the Secretary of Defense.
you know millions of dollars, billions of dollars, actually tens of billions of dollars are missing. They the Afghanistan withdrawal is absolute even greater failure than his first one. So like he
Right.
went back and said, "Hold my beer" to himself.
Oh, my beer. Yeah, exactly. I can do with this one better.
Yeah, and
You know,
so like we have years of evidence of failures due to nepotism, due to corruption, due to legacy jobs, due to like tenure,
due to
and
identity politics and due to
like,
judging people
yeah.
by the color of their skin and not by the content of their character.
Well, I mean, like I've been living in a cave down here, and it's been delightful. But things are getting so raucous that like it is starting to like seep through down here, which it hasn't happened in the past couple years. But You
Are
know,
these from
I'm
conversations around the bar, or it's just making the news down there?
it's starting to it's starting to chime into media. It's definitely I don't put a ton of validity into things I hear over the bar or on the boat or I tend to follow in the words of former President Reagan, trust but verify. So like I try not to
But
like
are you
form.
hearing more though, like people sitting around drinking,
Yeah.
like, "Can
Oh
you
yeah.
believe this happened?" And
Yeah. No.
oh
Like
my god, yeah, because
and
they're
so
in
like
tune because they're only down there for a week or so. They're in tune with
yeah.
what's going on back there, right?
Yeah. And
Back
so
here in the
like
states,
and then if it piques my interest enough, I'll go do a little research or I'll watch some committee meetings or something like that. And you know, but one of the things that I've found uh, is people are getting hip or wise to in both countries that this is actually corruption. It's not the system.
right?
And now, like people, you know, a lot of people went with Donald Trump in his first election bid because he stood for something different. And then a lot of people went with him because they got called degenerate.
Right.
Like, you know, they were, you know, they didn't use the word degen. They used the other
Right. No,
deplorable,
the
right?
reality is a lot of them went with because they truly wanted someone out of the beltway. They
Yeah,
wanted
and then they were
someone
like,
not in politics.
and then his like, if you didn't fall in line with him because of like you're deplorable, you know, you fell in line because he said drain the swamp.
Right.
Like this is a real thing. Now, despite your feelings about the guy, the former president, um, he hasn't been wrong on some things. He immediately called out that they were spying on him in Trump Tower. He immediately said that, and he's been vindicated on
Right.
many things. Now he's like dude paid off a hooker, right?
Doesn't mean he's not without fault.
Like
Right.
he is definitely not without sin. He's definitely not without fault. He paid off a hooker. Uh, his vocabulary is not pristine. Um,
Right.
his ability to fire off a trolling tweet in the middle of the night is spectacular.
Good
Uh,
point.
like he is not
Do you remember
presidential,
those days we'd get up in the morning and you're like, I gotta
and you
just see
just
what
like,
was said. You're
yeah,
like,
yeah, no,
there was
yeah,
no channel that was enticing as there was nothing on the web
no,
that was
no, like,
enticing as like, what did he say last night at 2 a.m.
yeah,
when
no,
he
and
should be asleep?
yeah, no, like you just know he's hopped up on Diet Coke and just pounding McBurgers.
Yeah.
Just out of
But
boy.
no, but just to
But
move, go ahead. Go ahead.
but so like some things have happened, right? And we've always, especially like I remember you and I during the uh, during the Obama administration, we had issues with the show. Uh, like we felt like the show was weirdly losing listenership. We noticed spikes and irregularities in our broadcast performance.
Right.
We experimented with days, we experimented with time slots, we tried different things, but we in the back of our minds are like, this is something isn't right. Trump becomes president, Facebook straight up, it was killing our stream. Like oh,
Yeah.
lost a signal. And so this
Followers being
conspiracy,
lost. I mean, look how long it took us to get followed. We'd have 5-10 times the amount of people watching a show, and we're like that.
yeah,
Then we have as people liking the page,
yeah.
right? It didn't make
and
sense.
and so like this conspiracy mentality, this conspiracy theory thing, uh, gets proven right, and then we find out, like, okay,
Oh, it's
the
worse. Then,
government,
yeah, they're collaborating with the government to shut
the
people
the
down.
gut, the government is giving big tech its cues and marching orders on who to promote, who to diminish,
And
and
this was all
like,
before COVID
yeah,
because it went off. It
and
went off the rails at COVID time.
And then when COVID happened, people got greedy. And this is the interesting thing. So like, and this is the correlation I want to bring, between the two countries. So like Canada, their lockdown was just asinine in comparison to the rest of the world. And it didn't affect their numbers in any way, right? They were the slowest to buy vaccines. And then, if you didn't get vaccinated, the prime minister called you a Nazi, called you a fringe element, called you, public enemy number one. And so smart people, educated people started questioning and pushing back. And then all that information starts getting like censored. The very first thing Canada passes a censorship bill where they can control what you can and can't post on social media. They, as the government, retain the right
That is
to
straight
censor
up
the people.
communistic. That's straight up communism.
Right. And so they force this through under the guise of like public safety and all that. And all of a sudden people are like, wait a second, you just don't want me to say that you're a dick. You don't want me to say that this is stupid. You don't want me to say that follow the science. Well, the science is actually saying this, the opposite. Because Canada didn't have Dr. Fauci. They had their own Ministry of Health, and they took a lot of cues from the World Health Organization as well as the United States. But then you have in the United States, you got Dr. Fauci, you got all these guys standing there and just blatantly saying things. Now, we knew the intelligence community, of course, the director of the CIA and the FBI are not going to be honest,
right,
when a camera's in front of them. And people like, they should be. Well, I disagree. I don't think our intelligence heads should be on camera.
Shouldn't he be known? I mean, really?
Right. Like, I think it's bad intelligence to let everyone know how bad our intelligence is. Right. So it's
kind of like letting people know that you're out of certain ammunition and weapon systems. Right.
So like those should always be closed sessions.
Right.
They should be closed sessions, and then your representative, this is a republic, your representative can then relay to his or her constituents the actual status of the testimony.
Right.
And, and that way we don't sourcing, practices, techniques, and all that sensitive information doesn't get brought out, blah, blah.
Right.
Anyway, but I don't think like the government should be like on camera going, yeah, if you don't wear 3 masks, you're going to get gonorrhea of the mouth.
Right.
And, and get just absolutely carried away. We are seeing, and I know this is a very long-winded way to get to it, but we are seeing a second enlightenment because people, like we saw the Arab Spring, a decade ago, right?
The green movement.
And we started seeing when people got information from outside of the echo chamber, they started pushing back and they started asking questions. And then they started communicating with other people. And then
which is why you see some of these countries lock down their internet, lock down Twitter, Facebook, China, Iran, North Korea, all that, right? They don't want that information coming in.
What happened to the North Korean cheerleaders that went to Seoul to watch the Olympics? You think they were allowed to go back and live and be like, everybody had a cell phone. The lights were on at 8:30 at night.
You could eat whatever you want.
I could eat whatever I wanted.
I eat bulgogi all day and rice all night.
They said it's like hell there. It's heaven. Like, every single one of those North Korean cheerleaders got killed. There's no way they let them live and have that information, because that information is more dangerous than any little like missile that he's trying to shoot over the Yellow Sea. I like that information. And as people start getting that information, now in the civilized Western world, we're experiencing that. All of a sudden it's like, oh, Dr. Fauci wasn't right.
Yeah. Oh, you mean that it really did come from the lab? Like all that time when they were shutting down every Twitter account that said something about it coming from a lab. Now they're saying, now the federal government, the intelligence agencies are all going, yeah, we think it came from a lab.
We funded gain of function.
Right.
Uh, the laptop's a real thing. The
Yeah.
election was interfered with.
Oh, those 50 intelligence officials all were coerced and asked to sign that letter, and they all pretty much said they knew. Or the latest one, the FBI admitted they knew that laptop was legit day one,
Yeah.
yet never corrected the narrative. Right.
And this whole rules for thee but not for me, like you can hide behind that when people aren't blasting it 24/7 over the intercom. But now everyone's like, wait a second, this guy's, like on camera snorting coke off some hooker's ass, sucking on a crack pipe, and he's dumping a handgun in a
Dude, that
dumpster
that
behind a
laptop
school.
that laptop was the greatest gift ever to this country to know what was given. Here's a better one. You may not know this, Toby. He went the other day to go visit his lawyer. They got his lawyer on a balcony, smoking a bong as Hunter comes and visits him. The dude goes out there where he's exposed to cameras and paparazzi or news media are taking pictures of him. His attorney is on the balcony firing up a big old
doing
glass bong.
We're doing bong rips.
Yes,
Oh, atta
he's his
boy,
attorney. I
atta
mean,
boy.
that's some
Oh,
that's
I
some
love it,
that's some skid stuff right
dude.
there. And
No,
and,
like
and the American
it,
people are going, you're not even trying to hide it anymore, you know?
no, well, and see, and this is the point. So, like, I'm chuckling over bong rips because to me, the bong rip is the exact same thing as the chairman of the Fed who got her job based on being a lawyer and understanding, the economy the way that she does and the nuance of the law, like not being in good standing with the bar.
Right.
Like she got a job that she was technically unqualified to get.
How about the
And
head of the CDC? She was a professor at a small Massachusetts college and was
yeah,
appointed the head of the CDC right at the start of the pandemic. Right? She
yeah.
was no way qualified. She was not even at a big. I'm not talking Harvard even. I'm not talking a Ivy League,
No.
like a small unnamed
Well,
college.
you can get a great education in a lot of places.
Yes.
However,
So, but then when you look at this, now you got this corruption thing. It is coming full swing. You have, and I said this to someone the other day. They were like, "What?" In fact, my one oldest son said, "Why this whole thing about the Jason Aldean song and all that stuff?" I'm like, "Look, I know this is going to sound conspiracy, but man, when you look at the last few years, like everything has come true." When the media has nothing, you got two guys, 13 and 14-year vets of the IRS, one of them an admitted Democrat, that came in front of Congress, that blew their cover as a whistleblower and laid everything out. Guess what media did not cover it? Most of the mainstream media did not cover it, but guess what they covered was a Jason Aldean song that's been out for 4 months, that all of a sudden everyone's in uproar making accusations about this song, that making that no way the song references racism, race, lynching, nothing. But boy, all the media spun. And I said to my son, I'm like, I'm not saying it's because of these guys, but when these two dudes are sitting in front of Congress and committee for 8 hours and they are ripping apart this the son of the president and everything he's done, and they're laying all the evidence. I mean, this dude's up there saying he owes $126,000 in taxes for 2018. He owes this much. I'm like, this dude came, I want him as my tax guy because he knew everything. And yet all the media is going to talk about a country song that was filmed in front of a location that like a whole bunch of Hallmark movies and a Hannah Montana video was filmed in front of, and all of a sudden everyone's upset. They
so
are the dog is being having the shit wagged out of it.
so like people are starting to figure out that the and this is a newer term. This is like only a couple years old, if that. The legacy media versus like the mainstream media, but like the legacy media, like they're compromised, and they
Yeah.
always have been. And like I remember doing a. In fact, I mean, you remember this. This was probably like my most popular blog post that I ever wrote back in the day, and that blog post was about how the media were phoning it in, and they're like putting things on Yahoo. It was a rebuttal to Yahoo News about a bus bombing that they blamed the Americans for. And, it went all over the world, Yahoo News, that me and my guys lit up a bus when all we did were like drive by, uh, watch a roadside bomb detonate into that bus and rendered aid. Like we didn't have any additional engagement. We didn't, we were just,
Right.
in essence, good Samaritans. But,
Right.
they, there's a couple cell phone pics and all of a sudden, like some reporter is Saigoning it and just straight up phoning it in. And people are starting to realize, like, legacy media, they're taking their cues. People are like, oh, like, squash that, push this. There's a really interesting video that Joe Rogan has played a couple of times. And I don't know where Joe Rogan found it. It's not his, he didn't generate it, but somebody else did. And it's every different network at a local level, CBS, Fox, NBC, ABC, saying the exact same
Exact same
script.
thing. Yeah.
The exact same script.
I've seen that.
And
I've seen that 4 or 5 times about 4 or 5
yeah,
different events. They have the same
yeah.
the same words, the same buzzwords. It's like they
And
were all
so, like,
sent a script and said, make sure you drop this in there.
and then now we're like, I know a lot of people, my wife included, are not Elon Musk fans, but the dude like opened free speech back up.
He spent
Like,
$44 million to show the world how corrupt big tech was.
yeah, and like the release of the Twitter files, and this should be like a huge indicator.
That's as
And I think
eye-opening as the Hunter laptop.
yeah,
I mean,
and I think enough people have the intelligence to realize that when lawmakers are more concerned about your source than the material, like, like clearly they're more concerned that you found out
right.
than it's true.
Than what it's about. Dude,
And the Twitter files
this
are
world
huge.
is this world's upside down when all this is happening. The government, after dozens and dozens of years of keeping it secret, have pretty much all come out and said, yeah, there's aliens and there's UFOs and we have all this stuff. And everybody's like, oh, that's terrible. Hey, what else are they talking? I mean, literally, we've got footage everywhere. All this shit's declassified. Like, they've got committees, they've got teams and all this stuff. And everyone's like, holy crap, we have, like, it's legit. It's not just Area 51 and Randy Quaid or Dennis Quaid, which is Randy Quaid, where you're driving up in the ass end of the UFO. Like, this is legit. The government has come out and said we have UFOs and we have possible bodies. You got this guy, this intelligence guy was saying, and people normally would be like out in the streets, like, oh my God, they're just like,
no,
but
like it just went like it didn't even happen.
But this corruption now at the top, I don't want to go too much. We're about 38 minutes. I want to make sure we hit on this. The corruption at the top now. You have these 2 whistleblowers have come out. You've had you've had a number of people come out. You've got this FBI reports, these documents where they were at the 1025s or 1095s, whatever, they were released Friday by Grassley. You now have Devin Archer, he was the right hand man of Hunter Biden. Everything that Hunter Biden got in money and positions, from board memberships to whatever, his business partner Devin Archer got. He's in picture after picture with him and Hunter, with Joe Biden and all that stuff. Is now, after 3 or 4 times of pushing back on subpoenas, is coming to talk in front of the committee next week. Right on the heels of the 2 whistleblowers who've said that the Delaware prosecuting attorney general dragged his feet on the charges to get past the statute of limitations, kept delaying it. That the gun thing should have been followed. No one else would have gotten away with that. All this stuff is legit. Hunter owes all this money. And they just pretty much said, but no one wants to do anything for it. And it's just not right, because we go after everyone else and no one's doing anything about this. And in fact, they said, we were told, don't ask about Dad. Don't ask about Joe Biden. Don't follow through your investigation. That they follow through on every other American citizen. When there's smoke, there's fire. And now, so the people are seeing it at the highest levels. This is not something that Keon Jean-Pierre can deny or nothing like that. that Hunter Joe Biden can't stumble and not answer. The evidence is so freaking overwhelming, which is amazing compared to what the evidence was against Donald Trump, that they impeached him on twice.
Yet.
Yes.
What's going to happen?
Anything.
Nothing's going to happen, man. When was the last time you got pulled over?
Long time ago.
Right? So, like, how was that experience?
It went fine. It was good. Good, right? Good, respectful, done. Yeah.
Because if you had anything on you, they'd have found it. Right? You know, like, chances are, if you were behind the wheel intoxicated, they would have identified that. If your car, had a odor of weed, they'd have investigated. We can't get pulled over in America without like them knowing everything about us, right? They run your license, like now your DD 214 and your license get connected. Like they know everything about you, like
you have a gun permit. They got it all.
They know everything about you.
But you can walk in that White House with a dime bag of nose candy, and no one knows whose it was. Right?
Like they don't even know where. Like highly trafficked area next to the Situation Room. Like
you and I, you've been to the White House, right? You've been there.
The Secret Service.
Yeah.
The secret. No, dude. Remember, I'm Canadian. I'm not allowed in.
Oh, that's right.
They're scared we're gonna burn it down again. I'll probably get shot for that.
Next time you come back through Custom Border Patrol, we're waiting on you.
Mr. Nunn, we need to talk to you about that again. No, like let's keep it real.
Yeah.
There's a reason, and I disagree with the reason, but there's a reason why the Black Lives Matter movement gained so much traction, is because to a strong portion of the population, they believed it to be true because it made sense. It made sense that people were being oppressed by a person in authority. That didn't make it true. And most of the things that caused the Black Lives Matter movement were predicated on myths, predicated on lies,
which is why the organization is falling apart and is
and it's all defrauded and all that stuff. But there's a reason why people believed in it, because it wasn't a hard line. It wasn't a stretch to be like someone in power will abuse that power. And it could be racially motivated. All right. Like that's a part of the human condition.
Right.
It's not a stretch. But with that same intelligence and that same, let's go from A to B, that same demographic and group of people are going to be like, what do you mean you didn't find who owned that Coke? They found out who owned that Coke.
Well, our good friend Susan Katz Keating says she has the names. I was texting with her weekend before last. She was on Dave's show 2 weeks ago. She says she has 2 independent sources, 2 Secret Service sources, independent of each other, that have given her the same name. They had it a week. They had it days after they found it.
Yeah. I'm waiting. They have everything about it.
And well, the most secure building in the world. Right. I mean, a drone flew into the top of the Kremlin. A drone gets near the White House. They just mysteriously drop out of the sky. Like nothing's getting near that place. It's got cameras and sensors and who knows what it has around it. And someone's going to come in and just do the drop right there, like put a mark on the mailbox and say, "Oh, I got to go do my drop." I mean, what is this? I mean,
so you got Tucker Carlson releasing hundreds of hours of footage, dispelling a whole narrative.
Right. In fact, getting a guy released out of prison early. The Buffalo Shaman, they released him based on that footage that was released to Tucker Carlson. Yeah, that dude's
like
out
the
hat. Because that footage showed the police escorting him around and opening doors for him and showing him like they were tour guides. When that came out, the judge pulled it back in and said, "No, he's getting released." I mean, he's like in a not a halfway, but he's like in a house to get.
Well, he probably needs to be in some form of supervision, just because like he might not be at full potential.
Was it just me? He looked
But
a lot like Matt Best. I'm just saying. Him and I was I'm just saying
they've
him and
never
Matt
been
Best
seen
look
at
a
the
lot
same.
alike. I've never seen the
They've
same
never been
place
seen
twice.
as
No,
never been in the same
no.
place twice.
But
No, but
I mean
like
that
you
that
brought,
evidence that came out. Had Tucker had the Republicans not won the committee chair, and had that not been handed over to, had that not happened, Tucker would never got a hold. All that stuff would have been suppressed.
now they hid all that and put it and sold it to the American people as this great conspiracy, this lizard worshiping QAnon
Right.
pedophile thing, like, and people like bought into that. Like I didn't know what QAnon was until January 6th,
Right.
and to be honest with you, I still don't really know what QAnon is, other than it's
It's
probably
already
like a
done. It's
couple,
not even a thing anymore. Like it's done. It's
like
not. It was never an
yeah, like
organized group.
yeah, like it,
But you had
I
but
think
you have a movie come out 2 weeks ago that highlights the dangers of child
and
trafficking.
they bring that name back,
They label it
and
QAnon, and people are like, "What?"
they bring that name back. No, and like like it's like, oh, if this works here, let's use it here. And it's
Yes.
like,
And that
and
movie has crushed Mission Impossible. It has crushed everything. And
not
it
Barbie.
is, well, Barbie just came out, but I mean, it did
Okay.
Indiana Jones, all those things, and it's a small independent from Angel Studios movie. But boy, they tried their best because they came out within a day or two and said that's a QAnon film. Like what?
Yeah.
No, it's
Well,
about child trafficking. Like
and they're like 100 million plus into it, right?
yes, yeah,
Like, and the really neat thing is, it sounds like the people involved in that film, like, some of that money is probably going to go to like fight that war,
oh yeah, yeah.
and like that's an actual war, and we need to fight it, and it's not a notional thing like the war on drugs. Like that's like, no, we need to protect kids, and we also need to stop drugs. But the no, it's wild
Yeah,
that
isn't it amazing
when you
how
have
isn't it
something
amazing real quick?
that's truthful, factual, and
Right.
proven, you're like, oh well, let's throw that in the realm of conspiracy theories, and people are gonna be like, wait a second, like how is like child trafficking conspiracy theory? Like,
Let me drop this turd in your prom punch bowl right here. Isn't it amazing? You've got all these committees in states and areas like California, San Francisco, and places all over that have put together all these committees about reparations, and everyone talking about millions of dollars back, and wanting their slice of the pie because their great grandfather or grandparent or whatever. And in fact, in California, you don't even have to show that you come from a slave. All about slavery. Yet we have a film and we have a problem in this country of human trafficking, which is slavery all day happening, and nobody gives a crap. In fact, they try to bury the film because it doesn't support their narrative. So you're so concerned about slavery that happened so far back that no one was even closely related to it, because you're 3 or 4 or 5 grandparent way, you never knew what known from Adam, but you got to get your couple $1,000,000. Yet you have kids being trafficked across the southern border in droves, and every other way you have human trafficking going on. Not just kids, I mean young people and all kind of stuff. Yet no one's freaking out over that. Slavery's here alive today. It's happening, and it's happening over that southern border by every single day. And it's been happening for years.
no,
Yet
like we've talked
they're
about,
worried about that.
we had Craig on the show,
Right.
right? So like, you and I, Rob, our producer who we gave a raise to just the other day. Um,
We had
the
Craig on. I had one time deputy on a couple of weeks ago. I got his book.
Yeah, no,
He,
like
he talks all about it.
these guys, yeah, these guys are like knee deep in it, like, um, and I was helping uh, a really talented young lady, that's actually just happens to be the sister of one of my soldiers, or a guy I served with. Let me rephrase that. A guy I served with, who's just a brilliant cybersecurity person. Look at, we were able to like get her, through Rob, get her married up, matched up, with an organization, like, because this isn't just because a movie came out, is because this is on a lot of people's hearts. It's affected a lot of people. It is long-standing and the greatest evil that's been on the planet. And it's sad to me that so few fight it.
Right.
I've known guys for years. There's a famous baseball player. He's on Buckmasters. You know, he goes down. In the height of his MLB career, went down into South America. To help free kids. So like this has been on their hearts for like a long time. You got
Craig
Sawman
Sawyer,
Sawyer.
Sawman, yeah.
Like you know with his organization doing great things. Deputy one time, also from Arizona, there doing good things about it. And we have a border situation right now that is just exacerbating it uh, exponentially. And these aren't cute talking points; they're kids.
They're real
Like
lives.
this is an agenda. Uh, this is humanity,
Yeah.
and humanity knows no party.
Right.
Like
And it shouldn't be
it
anything that
it
regardless of
it
what letter
doesn't.
you put behind you.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like humanity knows no party. Uh, there's good and there's evil,
Right.
and like I I'm encouraged by the film is not offered here. Otherwise, I'd go sweat through, as people are saying, like the theaters and stuff. But no, I'm encouraged that people are starting to tell the stories and this is why I brought up the modern day Enlightenment. You know, as Martin Luther, was able to read the Bible for himself and realize that the clergy were taking liberties with the word. Uh, you know, People pushed back, and you know, their relationship with Christ became personal and not through a vicar.
Right.
And like people are starting to realize, like maybe the clergy, which is now the government, aren't the most viable source of information or the most reliable source of information. And I can start thinking for myself, because I can just go on Twitter, X, I think it got called today. It changed
Today,
name
yeah, it's
today.
X. Yeah.
And I can listen to these five different viewpoints openly, and then I can like critically think my way
That's
to
the
my
thing.
own position.
We have more information at our fingertips than ever before, but people are less inclined to ever even go look at it anymore, right? It's still that way. I
But
mean,
we're gonna.
you
I
think
think we're
about
gonna.
70s when we grew up, the 70s, the 80s, that kind of stuff. You literally, right? You had three channels. The president came on, in the States. If the president was on TV doing a State of the Union, you were screwed because he was on every channel, right? There was nothing to watch because God forbid you try to go to UHF and find something, right? It was just you whatever Dan Rather, the Sunday
Yeah.
mornings talk shows, the NBC nightly news told you, that's what you went with.
Innings RIP.
Yeah, we just we didn't know anything. I mean, I
Yeah.
wonder sometimes, man, was the media that skewed back then as it is now? We were
Yes.
completely ignorant to it.
Dan Rat
Yeah, Dan Rather,
was it
yeah,
was it Dan Rather or Brokaw?
yeah.
Which one of them got just they falsified it, right? They falsified their story.
Was Dan
Like
Rather and Brian Williams, right? Brian
yeah, so
Williams was
like
yeah.
yeah,
Brian
I
Williams was in
apologize.
Iraq and he wasn't in Iraq and stuff. But Dan
Yeah,
Rather made up the
like
stuff about
the
right,
documents about George Bush, right? George W.
right.
Bush.
Yeah.
Uh,
He falsified that. That's what got him booted, right?
right. And like then uh you know we know that we've had this information
So,
for
so
all this time.
you mentioned a second ago, right? That these countries, these lockdown dictatorships, they don't want people to have access to this info. They don't want
Mhm.
them to think freely. If you kind of put that in perspective, right? Back then, we were just trudging right along to those three main media outlets and whatever the newspaper said, and they could pretty much the powers that be, whatever they are. I'm not saying there's any group or this or trying to act like that, but they can control that narrative. They had everyone in control. And now that you have the internet and you have all this access, it's like they have to crank up their defense 1,000 times over. So now they're controlling social medias. Now they're making sure the right keywords get sent to all the news outlets. They're dropping things like QAnon when they know it's going to elicit a emotional
Yeah,
response,
response. Yeah.
right? Just like, remember, use the, I don't mean to use the term joke, but after 9/11, right? It was this common thing of like, hey, if you want to get people inside, just mention on it. I mean, even the Simpsons did a thing on it, and Family Guy, like, just say 9/11, and everyone was like, yeah, all you had to do
Hillary Clinton invoked 9/11 several times in her campaign.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BootHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.